Welcome to the ROCK's online worship experience. We're so glad you decided to stream into our service today. Get ready to have an exciting worship experience that is sure to transform your life. Whatever you need from God at this very moment, He is able to provide and do so much more. Now, before the service begins, there are a few things we invite you to do. 1, while you're worshiping with us online, feel free to interact with our online ministers in the chat and share this broadcast with your family and friends so they too can enjoy this online experience. 2, be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Simply search for Dr. Dana Carson and click subscribe. On this channel, you'll find a host of kingdom resources that will help you build on the spiritual foundation that God has laid in your life. And 3, follow the Rock WOI on Facebook and Instagram to connect with us and discover all the Rock is doing. Now get ready to shake off all your worries and stresses and experience the power of God in your life. Service will begin soon.
Satan always tries to discredit the credibility of the witness. He tried to do so with Jesus, took him from court to court. But at the end of the trial, Pontius Pilate stated, "I wash my hands because I find no fault." See, because if they could discredit the witness, they could discredit the message. Thus, our text is a rich text that deals with the power of a credible witness. This text is very misunderstood until we do a deeper dive into its contextual environment. Second Temple Judaism. This woman in the text becomes a star witness for Jesus. The problem is that her reputation has been tarnished in order to lighten the blow or discredit altogether her witness due to her moral stature or what has been perceived by many as her being a loose woman. Some have even gone as far to represent her as a whore. I must confess that the watershed theology of Romanization, Europeanization, colonization, Westernization, and Americanization of the gospel, even in my seminary training, taught me to character assassinate this honorable woman. I was once among those who initially judged this woman before I performed a critical analysis of her Samaritan context. You see, Satan is the accuser of the brethren. Unfortunately, the Bible is replete with star witnesses that Satan has attempted to discredit so that their testimony would not be heard. Jeremiah was a victim. In Jeremiah 20 and 10 and 11, Saul of Tarsus and Ananias, not Saul of Tarsus, he's not coming to this house. In Acts 2, are these not Galileans? In Acts 4, are these not uneducated, untrained men? But they realized they had been with Jesus. The woman at the well has been historically defamed. It wasn't until I studied the New Testament and at Hebrew University in Jerusalem that I began to understand the power of her witness. Contextually, when we look at this text, the Jewish and Samaritan controversy runs deep. The Samaritans are one of the sibling groups of Judaism. They still exist today, and they still offer animal sacrifices. About 1,000 of them live in Israel today. Samaritans are Jewish people who were thought to have compromised their witness by mixing with idolatrous cultures, marrying into idolatry. Thus Ezra tells them, put away your strange wives. They wanted to rebuild the temple together with those who had returned from Babylonian exile, but both Ezra and Nehemiah would not allow them to participate. Both of them, the Samaritans and the Jews, considered themselves to be true Israelites, the descendants of Jacob. Thus you hear this woman saying, talking about the well of Jacob, our fathers. And each one of them viewed each other as heretics. The Samaritans looked at the Jews as heretics, and the Jews looked at the Samaritans as heretics. Both believed in the Torah, though the Samaritan Torah had some semantic changes in it, and they put in the Torah Mount Gerizim, which they refer to their Torah as the truth. The Samaritans did not embrace the prophets and the writings. They did not recognize them as inspired or divine authorship. So they didn't embrace anything but the first 5 books of Moses. Thus, the Samaritans are the people of Samaria who parted ways with the people of Judah in the Persian period. The Samaritans believed that it was not them, but the Jews who separated from the authentic stream of Israelite tradition and the law. Now, there was a lot of controversy that existed around the Jews and the Samaritans. There were wars that existed between the Jews and the Samaritans. The Samaritans were thought in history, they were known that there were some Jews traveling through Samaria for the feast, and they were ambushed and they were killed. History records, and Josephus in Antiquities lets us know about the validity of this history. And as a result, there was a war that broke out between the Jews and the Samaritans. It was just like what you have going on with the Russians and the Ukrainians. There was a war that broke out. They could not stand one another. And thus, the Jews would walk around Samaria because they were sworn enemies. And they remembered that they got ambushed going through Samaria. So, the Jews never traveled through Samaria. So when Jesus says, I must go through Samaria, he's making a controversial statement, and the disciples are very fine with going away for lunch. They went to get something to eat, while Jesus had to go through Samaria. Now, Jesus in his ministry, he ministers to the Samaritans, and he tries to bridge this gap. Thus, the Jews went crazy when Jesus tells the story of the Good Samaritan. Good Samaritan? That's antithetical. What do you mean, Good Samaritan? There is no such thing as a Good Samaritan. But Jesus tells the story about a Jewish man being beaten, left to the side of the road, and all of the Israelites and all of the Jewish people just passed him by like it was nothing, even though he was their kinsman. But then a Samaritan came, picked him up, and cared for him. Jesus tells a parable about a Good Samaritan, and Israel is on fire for this. He tells about 10 lepers. Samaritan comes back and thanks him. He's bridging some gaps here. And now he comes to Samaria, and he meets a woman who's traveling along. And I was taught in the watershed theology that she was traveling alone because she was immoral, and that no women wanted to be seen with her because of the dark lifestyle she indulged in. Because during that time, true, the women would come to the well in caravans, and she was alone, and that wasn't the cultural norm. But rather than trying to understand why this woman was traveling alone, the first thing we did was put her in the darkest sense there could be. She a hoe. I was taught it through watershed theology, and she's flirting with Jesus. Give me of this water you give me of this water you got. Where's your husband? I ain't married, baby. See, all of these things come to our minds because it's watershed thinking. It's the accuser of the brethren. It's making us look at this woman dark. And so then we use it that if the hoe at Samaria can get saved, the hoe in New York can get saved. Like it's a theology of the horse. Now, she comes to the well at noon, the heat of the day. Now, she probably was trying to avoid people. But why? Was she trying to avoid people, or were people trying to avoid her? She was married 5 times. However, when we look at this, we say, man, she can't keep her husband. What was going on in the mind of Jesus? It is clear that she has no children. She's been married 5 times. But now, Jesus says, and the one you're with is not yours. Oh, Jesus just cute. She's shacking. She's shacking. Jesus called her shacking. Let's make a theology of shacking right here. The one you living with ain't your husband. Theology of shacking. But in studying, and I thought about the Jewish context, and I have to read this. It's from the Book of Tobit. Somebody say, what? Tobit or Tobias. It's a part of the intertestamental writings. What the Roman Catholic calls Apocrypha, what the Protestant calls the pseudepigrapha. But they are respected as historical books, but not inspired. Martin Luther says, if nothing else, it's healthy fictional reading. Now, listen to this. So what was in the mind of Jesus and what was in the mind of this Samaritan woman? I want you to listen to this. This is from the book of Tobit in the Apocrypha, the pseudepigrapha, intertestamental, between the testaments. It says and I'm reading from the Common English Bible, on the same day in Ecbatana of Media, Sarah, Rachel's daughter, also heard insults from one of her father's female servants. Sarah had been given in marriage to 7 husbands, and Asmodeus, an evil demon, killed them before they could lie with her as newlyweds do. And so the female servant said to her, "You are the one who keeps killing your husbands. See, you have already been given to 7 husbands, and you haven't carried the name of any of them. Are you beating us because they all died? Go with them, and may we never see a son or a daughter of yours." On that day, Sarah was deeply upset in her heart and wept. She went upstairs to a room in her father's house and planned to hang herself. But she had second thoughts and said, "They will never insult my father by saying to him, 'You had but one dearly loved daughter, and she hanged herself because of her troubles.' If I did this, I would bring my father down to the grave in sorrow. It is better for me not to hang myself, but to beg the Lord to let me die so that I no longer hear insults during my lifetime." At that moment, she stretched her hands out toward the window and prayed. "You are blessed, merciful God, and your name is blessed forever. May all your works forever praise you. And now, Lord, I lift my face and my eyes towards you. Speak the word and set me free from the earth so that I don't have to hear insults anymore. You know, Master, that I'm pure from any uncleanliness from relations with a man. You know that I haven't tarnished my name or my father's name in this country where we are captives. I'm my father's only child. He has no other child to be his heir, nor does he have a brother or near relative for whom I can keep myself as a wife. 7 have died on me already. So why should I go on living? And if you don't like the idea of killing me, take notice at least of how they insult me." Raphael helps Tobit and Sarah. Raphael's an angel. At that very moment, the prayers of both Sarah and Tobit were heard in God's glorious presence. Raphael was sent to heal the 2 of them. Tobit by removing the white spots from his eyes to see God's light with his eyes again. He was blind. And Sarah, Rachel's daughter, by giving her as a wife to Tobias, which is Tobit's son, and by ridding her of the evil demon. It was Tobias' right to inherit her before all the others who wished to take her. At that very moment, Tobit returned from the courtyard back into the house, and Sarah's, Rachel's daughter, also came down from upstairs. Now, this little reading helps you to understand culture. She was not with the 5th man because she was a whore. This woman, or the woman at the well, she was not considered a bad woman. And she didn't come as a loose woman to the well. She was an older woman, thought to be past childbearing age, and she was living with the next of kin who was responsible for her. Hence, her husbands most likely died of sickness, killed by bandits, perished in war, or maybe one divorced her because of infertility. But whatever it was, she was still devastated, not loose. Loose women wouldn't have had the reputation to go into a city and talk to a city, and a whole city comes out. Who listens to the whole except for, you know, the trick? Now, but we were taught that this woman was a dark woman. She experienced, though, in her encounter with Jesus, this woman who was morally pure, more than likely a virgin. She's probably traveling alone because there is maybe whisper about her died or deceased or divorced husbands. The one she's living with is a next of kin, probably the brother of the last husband, who's now responsible for taking care of her. So she's devastated. And she's at the well, and she has a spectacular moment because Jesus talks to her, and this is a Jew and a Samaritan having a conversation. Jewish men did not talk to Jewish women in public. And Jesus bypasses all of the traditions, all of the rules, all of the laws, because he hears the hunger of this woman's heart. See, many of us, we judge people before we can hear their hearts. Just imagine if Jesus would have dealt with it like us. I preached a sermon decades ago called Ho No Mo. Because we judge that woman without knowing her context. Jesus, she not only has a spectacular moment, she has a supernatural moment. In verses 12 through 19, Jesus gives her a word of knowledge. Go get your husband. He's working her. Go get your husband. She says, sir, I have no husband. I'm being taken care of by a relative, his brother. But she didn't even get to say that. He says, you said correct. The one that he says, you've had 5 husbands, and the one that you're living with is not your husband. He's your caretaker. Not your big daddy. Not your paycheck. Not your boo on the side. Not that. It's legitimate. It's culture. It's law. Now, you know good and well that law wouldn't flow. It wouldn't. My brother died. I got to now marry his wife. You know that wouldn't go. Something to say. See, you better be glad that ain't truth. That's culture. Because if that was truth, now, so she gets a word of knowledge. So she's experiencing the supernatural. This hurting woman, God gives her a unique encounter with Jesus that no one else has had. because of the hungers of her heart. Why do you say the hungers of her heart? Because as soon as she understood who he was, she said, "Sir, I perceive you are a prophet. You're operating in supernatural revelation." Because then Jesus said to her, "I can also bring you satisfaction." What do you mean satisfaction? If you knew who I was asking you for a dip of water, you'd be asking me for water and you would never thirst again. Living water. She said, "Sir, can I have of this water?" He said, "You'll never thirst again." There's so many people out here hurting. They playing that role. They've learned how to adopt and adapt to being alone, being enclosed. Now, could it be that this woman wouldn't have never told Jesus her story because she was ashamed? And so he had to let her know, "I know your story already and I'm still interested." See, we disqualify people. There is nobody disqualified. Now, if you become just introspective for a moment and really think about how crooked and crazy you are, you would understand if God could save you, he could save anybody. Maybe you ain't never been on no crack pipe, but you still all cracked up. Listen, I'm saying to you that they're hurting people. And they're thirsty. And you're too busy judging rather than to bring them in. So where does she go? Instantly, after she perceives he's a prophet, he tells her, "I'll give you this water and you'll never thirst again. It'll be a well rolling up in. Give me this water." Then he says, "You're a prophet. I got Bible questions." Of course it wasn't Bible. I got doctrinal questions. You know, our fathers say that the mountain in which we're to worship is Mount Gerizim. Sanballat set it up for us a long time ago. But the Jews say it's in Jerusalem. Prophet. See, listen, she didn't say, "I want to know when I'm going to get another husband that ain't going to die." That's not what she asked him. She didn't say, "Will I ever get my own home?" She didn't ask him about material things, not about relational things. She asked him about worship. "Sir, I want my worship to be right with God. I want my life to be right with God. I don't want to do it wrong. I don't want to have lived all this time doing it wrong. Sir, tell me, how do you worship God? I don't want to be religious. I want to be relational. I don't want to go to church and then go to hell. I want to know, where do we worship, prophet?" Now watch this. This is powerful. With a woman who's hurting and judged. And he says this. See, Jesus goes straight doctrinal first. He says, "Woman, the Jews are correct. You do not worship on Mount Gerizim. So that's not the appropriate place to worship." He identifies with the Jews, not the Samaritans. He said, "We know where to worship." Then he says, "But don't be worried, because God is elevating things. God is doing something bigger than Jerusalem." He says, "The time is coming, and now it is, that the true worshipers will not worship on mountains, but they will worship in spirit and in truth." He says that true worship is going to be done from the inside of a man. That God is going to give you a renewed heart. He's going to give you a regenerated spirit. He's going to cleanse your soul. And your worship is going to be wrapped around spirit, Holy Spirit, and truth. So, this woman also gets a question about spiritual worship, but then this is what's so powerful here. Then also, she says, she's doctrine. Listen, she's doctrine. She's trying to get her Bible questions answered. Okay, our ancestors said the Messiah. We know the Messiah's going to come. Do you know when he's going to come? What's the deal with the messianic secret? Jesus doesn't do this for anyone else. He doesn't do it for any. He even told Pilate, you have said. Listen, she says, when will the Messiah come? He looks at her and say, he that talks to you, I am. Oh, God sent his son and gave the revelation of the Messiah to a lowly, hurting woman. Don't you tell me the value of women in ministry. Don't you tell me the value of women in church. God told him, Jesus told the woman who he was. He didn't even tell the disciples. He asked the disciples, who do men say that I am? He told the woman, I am he. Can you handle the revelation? What do you do when you get the reality of God? What you've seen, heard, and experienced. What this woman did is she left her water buckets. See, that's the first thing you do when you get a revelation. You leave that natural stuff and you deprioritize it. She forgot all about her water buckets. She left that bucket and became a witness. She was a credible witness. And she said, come see a man that told me all about myself. He is the Son of God. That was a powerful message, and I'm in the midst of this heart of ministry, evangelism, and discipleship. And man, the woman at the well, I know it was insightful, just like I said when I was preaching it. Watershed theology gave me a certain impression, but God always presents credible witnesses, and she was a credible witness that Satan tried to discredit, like he's trying to do you. He's trying to discredit your witness. But aren't you glad that you're in the witness protection program? You need to get this message in its entirety, and I want to thank you for listening to today's message, and I hope that you will join us next week. And if you're ever in Houston, Texas, drop by and visit one of our 3 services, Alvin, Broadway, and Edgebrook. If you're not in the area, make sure that you stream us. And pray about being a partner in supporting Dana Carson Kingdom Ministries so that we can get this gospel around the world. Would you do that? Well, until next time, shalom.
Thank you for worshiping with us today. If you are in need of prayer or someone to talk to, our online ministers are available just for you right now in the chat. We invite you to join us again for one of our powerful worship experiences that happen every week. Sundays at 10 a.m. is the Extraordinary Worship Encounter, where you can receive an on-time kingdom word. Then Sundays at 6 p.m. is our Miracles, Signs, and Wonders services, where you can receive any breakthrough you've been looking for. And Wednesdays at 7 p.m., join us for Understanding the Bible with Dr. Dana Carson, where you can get your biblical questions answered. We look forward to connecting with you. Be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Simply search for Dr. Dana Carson and click subscribe. On this channel, you will find a host of kingdom resources that will help you build on the spiritual foundation that God has laid in your life. And then follow The Rock, WOI, on Facebook and Instagram to connect with us and discover all that The Rock is doing. You can also get connected with us on our website at therockwoi.com. Again, thank you for worshiping with us and be blessed.